I'm far from broken, and I appreciate you guys attending. And I will tell you, if President Trump's grassroots forces combine as we can combine right now, you're going to see unbelievable numbers next Tuesday.
Well, in today's Spotlight, that was Steve Bannon speaking following his release from federal prison early this morning after serving a 4-month sentence for contempt of Congress. The former advisor to Donald Trump was quick to make his return to his War Room podcast just hours later, where he called himself, quote, a political prisoner. Now, Bannon was sentenced on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in 2022 for failing to comply with a subpoena related to the investigation into the January 6th attack at Capitol Hill. The staunch Trump ally repeatedly sought to appeal his conviction, but the Supreme Court ultimately rejected his appeal in June, and he was ordered to report to prison. So I want to bring back my panel here, Mike, Alfonso, Marielle, and JC. And Alfonso, look, we heard from our executive editorial producer, John Santucci, earlier, who says he thinks at most he may be, kind of informally advising the Trump-Vance ticket. We also know that Bannon said he spoke with Trump since he's been released, but declined to expand on his role in the coming week. But he noted he would help with voter turnout. Is that a good thing, or is this a potential liability here?
Oh, no, not at all. I think that you want leaders to energize your base so they come out and vote, and Steve Bannon can certainly do that. So at this point, he can certainly help get those people out to vote early or vote the day of the election. So the timing is good. But it also helps to highlight the weaponization of government. For over 40 years, the Department of Justice has not prosecuted anyone for deciding not to testify before Congress. They decided to do it this time because he was an advisor to Donald Trump. Let's be honest. It hadn't happened before. It happened this time. And that is a threat to democracy. That's why so many people, even independents, are saying this is a travesty when you go after somebody like Steve Bannon for not testifying before Congress.
Well, we know, Marielle, that Bannon essentially called himself a political prisoner, but he also kind of laid the groundwork for his audience that was listening to his podcast to not accept the election results if Trump loses. Do you think the Harris-Walz ticket will address this in any way?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's important to point out, in light of Alfonso's comments in particular, that Steve Bannon is not a political prisoner. He was sentenced by a jury of his peers, and he was convicted by a jury of his peers, and he was sentenced by a judge. And so I think this dangerous in this language is really important to call out. What folks are trying to do here, Steve Bannon and his supporters, are sow doubt and distrust among the American people, and I think it's really important for all of us, to call that out and say, no, our justice system works, and our elections are fair and safe.
Well, and in terms of that, I have some polling that I want to share with you, JC. According to the latest ABC News Ipsos polling, 86% of registered voters say they are personally prepared to accept the election results, but 2/3 believe that Trump is not prepared to accept the outcome as legitimate. So how does Bannon's comments then sort of inflame those feelings?
I think he's inflaming them as we speak. As soon as he came out, he started sowing doubt in the American people regarding the election result. Now, what's insane to me, to be honest, is to refer to Steve Bannon as a leader in any way whatsoever. This is someone who has been charged for stealing money from hardworking people who believed that they were paying to build a wall to separate Mexico from the United States. This is a crook, and he's come out of jail now. And now, for some reason, there are some folks in the Trump campaign who think this is a good idea to have someone who stole money from people to build a wall on the ground. It goes to show you what we were talking about a little earlier, about the people that this campaign surrounds itself with. When you surround yourself with people like Steve Bannon, when you surround yourself with people that call the island of Puerto Rico garbage, we're going to have to see who are these people and hold them to account after Election Day, because they're doing incredible things to divide us. And he already started sowing doubt. There has been no fraud happening on the American people, but the former president and his supporters already laying the foundation for what's going to be a crisis. And I'm very concerned about how the Americans are going to how are they going to react if this election is as close as the polls say it will be.
Well, again, a large majority of the voters here say they are confident in the outcome of this election. Also noting here that we did have 2 ballot boxes that were set on fire. People are encouraged to check the status of their ballots in Oregon and Washington. But also, Mike, I do want to share with you on that note what JC is sort of touching at here is that Trump's own supporters, according to our poll, 31% overall, say they are not so confident that the votes will be counted accurately. That's how they feel.
Yeah, I think based upon the poll that you read and then put in conversation and context with Stephen Bannon said that no matter how the results are looking, former President Trump should declare victory. I think that does 2 things, Kana, to get to the heart of your question. One, I do believe that it's going to energize the base of Trump support in order to come out and be more energized by Steve Bannon's presence. On the counter, I do believe it will have an impact on the independent voter, and particularly the independent voters in the battleground states where this is about the margins. Independent voters are much more critical thinkers, which is why they are not ascribed to a party. And so I think they will look at the Steve Bannon dynamic, look at the evidence that was presented, see how Steve Bannon was tried and then sentenced, and then they will be able to make that determination on whether or not they're going to vote for Trump or Harris. So in that aspect, I do believe that it could be a liability and it could cancel out, in particular, Kana, in the suburbs. And it's important in those battleground states that either candidate has to really run up the score in the margins within the suburbs. I do believe Steve Bannon can be a liability in the suburb areas of the battleground states. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like, too, from our reporters here, including Will Staken, it sounds like Bannon stopped short of saying that Trump should actually declare victory on election night, but they did encourage him to address the American public earlier than he did in the last election, suggesting he should have done it at 11 o'clock instead of like 2:30 in the morning or something like that. So really, the wheels are certainly turning here. Mike, Alfonso, Marielle, and JC, thank you all for being here with us.